Hey everybody, welcome to today's webinar. We've got something great in store for you. This is going to be one of your definitive sources to getting started with the new Databook GPT. I'm Matt. I'm from the marketing team, and I'll be serving as your moderator. Throughout, we want to keep things interactive. We have a great chat here, so add in the comments. Tell us who you are. Give us your name, your role, your company, and feel free to continue to add questions or thoughts. Again, this is interactive. We will pause at any point to answer questions or store them all for a nice Q&A at the end. So thank you all for attending. To kick things off, I'm going to hand it over to Lucas from our product team. Hey, Lucas, how you doing?
Hey, Matt. Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Super excited to be here. If you don't know who I am, I'm Lucas. I am a senior product manager here at Databook. I've been working on Databook GPT for about a year, leading the team to get us to this point. So super excited to go through this webinar with you. As Matt mentioned, the more you engage in the comments, the better this will be. I'm excited to hear some of the questions that you have. If we don't get to them in the moment, if you ask a question in the comments, we have a section at the end reserved to go through anything else. And if we happen to run out of time, we'll make sure to follow up with everyone. As you see on the screen, there's a quick agenda of what we're going to be going over today. I'll mention what you should be expecting from this webinar, going through some of like the basics of the interface of, how do you get to Databook GPT if you're a current Databook customer? If you're not, how do you even use Databook GPT once you're in there? I'll walk through some of the best practices, some prompts, some of my favorite things to do in Databook GPT personally. As you can imagine, I use it every single day, so I have quite the experience with the product. And then I'll go into a quick comparison between what makes us different than ChatGPT in terms of the responses that you'll get. And then we'll end with the Q&A, as I mentioned, and then have some helpful resources for you, such as our prompt guide, and then upcoming webinars that you can join.
Sounds good, Lucas. And I also just want to encourage anybody too who's been using Databook GPT, throw in some of your success stories. Tell us how you're using it. We're here to react and use those as examples as Lucas guides through the product. So I think we're ready to kind of kick things off and learn a little bit more about Databook GPT. Tell us more about it, Lucas.
Yeah, totally. If there's anything you get from today's conversation, I would say that it's that Databook GPT is easier, faster, and smarter than the way you're doing things today. The original Databook platform is amazing in all of the things that it provides to you, but I think we all know that there's a lot of information that's available there, and although helpful, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to navigate. So Databook GPT makes it super easy and accessible to you to really ask whatever you need to get the answers you want, and have some action items to take based on what you're doing as a seller, whether you're prospecting or trying to expand an account. Some of the key differentiators for Databook GPT is that we're 100% accurate. So when you look at a tool like ChatGPT, not to harp on them because I think what they do is absolutely amazing, but we're not scraping things off of the World Wide Web. We are working with licensed partners for our data to make sure that we're providing you the most comprehensive and verified information as possible. And you'll see that through some of the citations that we actually provide in our answers in Databook GPT in the demo in just a second. But I think that's a really important point because if you're talking to your clients, reputation is everything. You want to make sure that you're not conveying anything that's inaccurate. And as I mentioned, you'll have those sort of cited responses for peace of mind, which is really great. In terms of the key takeaways to take away from today, sorry, that was a tongue twister right there, is sort of mastering the essentials of how to use Databook GPT. It's pretty straightforward if you've used a tool like Perplexity, like ChatGPT. It's not really that much different in terms of how you use it, although there are some key differentiators, as I mentioned. Some of the top prompts you can use, I'll walk through my favorite flow. I feel like a lot of you are going to like what my favorite flow is. So hopefully you can comment and let me know if you're really liking it. And then also understand what are the sort of unique features that set us apart. So I'll go over that when I compare the answers from ChatGPT versus Databook GPT. For those that are Databook customers, how do you get to Databook GPT? If you go into your portal on the existing Databook platform, you can see that there is an icon below the home. You just click on Databook GPT and it'll take you straight to the Databook GPT platform. From there, there's a few things that you can do once you're in the Databook GPT platform. As I mentioned, it's pretty intuitive to use. You have your Ask Anything box highlighted right there where you can, as it says, ask anything that you want to. Below that, you'll see some conversation starter tips. I mentioned this when I was talking about the Databook platform as a whole, that it was sort of difficult to know maybe where to navigate or what to look for. You do run into the same sort of problem when it comes to these generative AI apps where the world is your oyster and you really don't know where to start a lot of the time. So what we've done here is provided some conversation starter prompts to help get you started, help you understand what Databook GPT can do, and help you discover the product in a way that makes it more effective for your day-to-day usage.
And Lucas, those will rotate from time to time, so you'll always be stimulated with some new ideas.
Absolutely. So these actually refresh every time you start a new conversation. And I guess I can announce it now that we are adding a lot more of these prompts here with an actual refresh button functionality very, very soon. So you won't have to like hard refresh the page to see new answers. You'll just be able to quickly click a button, see new conversation starters to help discover your way around Databook GPT, which is great. And then below that, you'll see that we have an activity feed. So this is very similar to the activity feed in Databook, but there's a few differences here. One of which is this sort of following companies model that we have. And this exists in the original Databook platform as well, but it's really important here because your feed is going to be reflective of the companies that you're actually following. And Databook GPT is going to tailor its answers based on the companies that you're following as well. In the other platform, you could follow companies or just kind of search for them freely. But the more information we know about you as a seller of like the sort of companies that you're following or are more interested in, the better off we're able to help you. So that's why I wanted to point it out here because it's quite important. And for those of you that have the access to the existing Databook platform, you don't have to refollow your companies. They're already automatically ported here. So you don't have to do any extra work. That's what we're trying to prevent you from having to do ultimately. And then you'll see here, the activity feed is sort of an overall activity feed, which is really nice because in the old app, you had to go to each of the individual companies. So on this screenshot, you can see, there's Shell, there's Domo, there's Verizon. You would have to go to each one of those pages, look at their key developments, see the events, and like have a million tabs open. Here, we've made it super easy for you to kind of look across all of your followed companies and have the capability to filter by events, news, and documents. We'll be bolstering a lot of these filters as well to be more specific. So if you're looking for earnings calls announcements or M&A announcements, they will be able to be filtered here very shortly. Additionally, you can also filter by company if you're really trying to hone in on a very specific company.
I think one point you're really emphasizing too, Lucas, is this is something you can log in daily, get value, have everything more streamlined, and really adds value each and every day.
Absolutely. And I think it's super easy to use the activity feed too, because sometimes you're following, let's say like 25 companies. It's pretty time consuming for you to go to each one of those tabs and see like what's the latest news. And in many cases, you might just like miss out that something really important happened at one of your accounts. This way, if you're logging in every day, you can just get a really quick snapshot of important things that have happened across all of your companies and kind of filter out things as well if you don't find them to be that important. So I think it's a super great value add in comparison to the existing application. On the left-hand panel side, you'll see a history of your conversations. It's not really noted here, but you do have the ability to delete conversations as well, which is nice. So you basically have a repository of all the conversations you've had. So if you had a really good conversation, you can always go back to it and review the answers that Databook GPT gave you, which is really nice.
And it's also compiling what you're asking. So it's always building more knowledge about you as a user, right?
Absolutely. And then on the bottom here, this is just like a quick note, but you have access to your sort of notification settings, the help and FAQ here. The help and FAQ has links to the prompt guide and other helpful resources, which is really helpful. It's notated on the screen here what it looks like when you go to the help and FAQ page. Also, if you're having any issues of any kind, you have access to that sort of intercom messenger on this FAQ page. So if you run into any issues with Databook GPT by any means, click the help and FAQ button, input something through intercom, or browse our articles. I'm sure one of those two things will get you where you need to be. Awesome. I'm going to move on real quick as well, just to be a bit cognizant of time here. And before I go into the demo and going through my favorite flow, I think there's a few terms that everyone should know. People who use Databook pretty regularly probably already know this, so you don't have, don't tune me out, but I'm sure you're experts at this. The Databook score is something I'll be mentioning quite frequently. So that's our propensity to buy score, which is between 0 and 5. It's an outside and multi-factor score that takes into account what's on the screen right there. It's really helpful to help in terms of prioritizing your accounts to understand, which ones you should be targeting, as you might be, having a lot of accounts that you're following. You might have 20, but maybe only, 2 or 3 of them have a high Databook score and are worth going after in the short term. And then strategic priorities are the operational objectives that are outlined by the C-suite of the company. These are human reviewed on our side and is a proprietary data set. So super helpful when you want to understand what the strategic priorities of a given company are. And you have access to these strategic priorities through the citations, but also the existing app. But I'll be mentioning these two terms quite a lot. So just wanted to make sure I set the stage there.
Yeah, we're just going to pause. Does anybody have any questions? I see this great comment from our team member, Will. Will used Databook GPT to book a meeting with the CFO of one of his accounts in his patch, which is a $2 billion a year company. Will is a great resource. Additionally, for any questions you have, hit him up on LinkedIn. He'll always supply you with some of his tips as well on Databook GPT and Databook in general. Just want to welcome everybody again. Thank you for tuning in. Continue to post questions, thoughts, and we'll get to them. Lucas, I think we can go right into the demo portion. This is the really good stuff. Let's see what it does.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't be afraid to throw me some heavy hitters in those questions. I'm ready for them. So for the demo here, let me make sure I'm on the right screen. Yeah, I am. So quick housekeeping. I am doing this from the POV of a Databook seller. So a lot of the answers that you're going to see through the interactions that I'm having here are from the POV as if I'm a Databook seller that is selling Databook solutions to other companies. So just wanted to clarify that just in case there was any confusion there while I go through the demo. As you'll see here, we already went over this. I can input any question here or have these quick conversation starters that are easy to use. But what I'm actually going to go ahead and do is go to like a pre-written question that I have over here. Again. So you'll see that I asked prioritize my followed accounts. And like I mentioned, this is something that I did just earlier this morning, just to make sure that everything was loading correctly. So you're not going to have a history that has this already. You have to input the question, as I mentioned before. So over here, I asked to prioritize my followed accounts here. And as I mentioned, we use the Databook score to help users prioritize their accounts. So out of the followed accounts I have, you can see that I have a few A-rated ones, several B-rated ones, and several C-rated ones. This gives me a really good indicator that, I don't really want to be focusing on these like B or C-rated ones. Maybe I'm going to focus more on my A-rated ones. From my perspective, what if I really don't know what a Databook score is or why it's really useful? I might be seeing, okay, Datadog has a Databook score of 3.5, but like, what does that actually mean? So below here, I went ahead and asked, elaborate on some of my A-rated accounts, just so I can get a better sense of, why are these rated as A-rated accounts? So below here, it lets me know a bit about Snap, about Datadog, some Salesforce information. I think for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to focus on Datadog. Over here, it'll let me know about some of their recent developments related to generative AI-based applications, their financial performance, how they have strong revenue growth over the last 12 months. Their gross margin is pretty good, but profitability is a bit of a challenge there. And then right below that, we have some of their strategic priorities in like a really quick and small, simple way to understand. So looks like they're trying to expand their customer base domestically and internationally, and enhance their technology leadership through continued investment, which is really nice.
And
And
Lucas,
you'll,
oh, sorry, I was going to
oh
just
no, go
mention,
ahead.
so far what you've taken us through has taken what, a minute of time max to generate all this. I just want to pause to let everybody know too. Think of yourself as a seller or your sales teams. Think about how much time it takes, how many hours, how many web tabs it takes to accumulate this in the manual version. And Lucas is displaying this in a matter of like a minute. This is all the information that's proactively come his way. So I just wanted to level set there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the beauty of this demo is that it is quite short because I get the information so quick. I mean, I can get this information on the regular Databook platform as well, but it takes a few clicks. And I kind of have to really know where I'm navigating. While here, I really just am able to understand that, okay, I want to do some prospecting. I rated my accounts. Datadog seemed like a good one. And now I have like a good sense in human terms what they're actually trying to do, not with like a ton of like MBA speak, which is really nice.
Lucas, we have a question we can address right now from Tim Horton. Can customers customize the Databook score to their industry or target customer?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tim. So right now, we don't offer the capability to customize your Databook score, but it's definitely something that we're looking into. We know that all of our clients kind of have different needs when it comes to how they might want to have a propensity to buy score configured. So we're hoping to make that admin console available for, sales ops or whoever on your team wants to configure that, so that everyone in your org can kind of be using a unified version of a Databook score that's more tailored to your organization or group.
And we love that kind of feedback, those kind of questions, because they really go right to the product team to interpret and see how they might make their way into the product. So thank you for that question.
Yes. Also, that lets us know we're right on target with what you're all looking for as well. So it's good to know that we're already looking into that, and that's something that you're looking for. So we're definitely aligned with bringing you the value that you're looking for. So that was a pretty quick and simple review of prioritizing my accounts and then elaborating on them. But I want to go through my favorite flow, as I mentioned. So let me get back up here to the top. So I did get the strategic priority in that sort of one sentence summary in my last sort of example there. But what if I want to sort of deep dive into them and get a better understanding of, what is the impact that I could have on some of these strategic priorities, and do Databook solutions really work well with these strategic priorities? So I went ahead and asked what are Datadog's strategic priorities here. And then below here, you'll see all of their strategic priorities, which when you look at the bolded ones, it pretty much aligns with that one sentence response that I got, but I get more information related to, importance, like competitiveness and the impact of this, which is really awesome to see. And then over here, I think I might have mentioned this previously, but just in case I didn't, we do have citations for these as well. So you can feel some level of peace of mind that we are pulling this with verified information and not just pulling it randomly from the internet and hoping that you believe it.
Lucas, let's say a customer wanted to do a deeper dive, say on that citation, to go open it in a new window, explore it more, maybe get even more granular. What would they do? And can you show us that?
Yeah, absolutely. So for these citations, you can click into them and you'll get a pretty quick summary of what was being mentioned in this 10K related to expanding their customer base for acquiring new customers strategic priority. But if you're really a sales nerd, you're going to want to look at the 10K. So over here, I clicked into the 10K, and it's going to be very small because it's a huge PDF. Anyone that's familiar with a 10K knows that there's a lot going on here. But you'll even see that it took me to the specific page in the PDF that this is mentioned. So I don't have to waste all my time going through all of these, the index, appendix, all of this sort of stuff. I'm taken directly to the area of the document where it's mentioned. So if you feel that, some information is kind of shaky or you really want to verify it for yourself, we're taking you there so you can see exactly where we got that piece of information, which is really nice.
I apologize in advance if we gave anybody anxiety opening a real 10K on this call, but I think this version of looking at the extracted information is much more pleasing to the eye and the brain. So thank you for showing us that, Lucas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the sort of goal for Databook GPT is to prevent you from having to, strain your brain on reading 10Ks all day, every single day, like the old way was. That is the beauty of generative AI. And then I didn't mention this, but below, if you really think that, this is too much to read, we have a TLDR here of the strategic priorities. So we keep on making it more simple for you, so you don't have to worry about, reading a ton of words to understand what the priorities are. And I think the best part about this is that it's written in just plain English, very easy to understand, doesn't have like a lot of financial or MBA terminology that's confusing. I really understand what they're trying to do here. It's expand their existing customer base and expand technology leadership. And I got those two takeaways very clearly. So after looking at that, I want to see how Databook's solutions can align with some of Datadog's priorities. And this is an area where Databook GPT really shines as well. So you'll see in the answer here, there's some ways that our solutions align with their strategic priorities. And you might be asking, how does Databook GPT know what my solutions are? Or you might not be wondering that, but whether you're wondering it or not wondering it, I'm going to tell you that Databook has this sort of context about your organization and about you as a seller. For example, your solutions and use cases that existed in the existing Databook application. And we're leveraging that information and using that context to provide you those sort of answers. So instead of you having to tell, a tool like ChatGPT, these are my solutions and use cases, and go back and forth with all of this context about you, we already have that built into our system. So you don't really have to worry that, Databook GPT doesn't understand like where you're coming from as a seller. It understands that and can give you an answer pretty quickly and in a comprehensive manner. So you'll see I have accelerate onboarding as one of my solutions, developing account plans. There's information below here as well that lets me know about the use case description, the buying group. How does that tie into those strategic priorities from earlier and the sort of impact that this could possibly have, which is obviously a very big point we want to hone in on when we're doing some outreach or prospecting for this sort of thing. I'll scroll down a little bit more past these, since now that I know how I can align my solutions with the priorities. And I'm curious now to know, what are some of like technographics related to the sales tooling that Datadog offers. Technically, Databook is a sales tool, and I really want to understand like who am I working against or working with in like their sort of ecosystem when it comes to sales tooling. This is new data that we've imported from our partner Sales Intel, which provides us the technographic information from some of our partners. So this wasn't available in the original Databook app and is just newly available in Databook GPT. And I think is something that I really want to point out as a really cool feature that we have available that I don't think really anyone else has. So here you'll see a table that kind of lists the vendor and the subcategory and the products themselves. But again, Databook GPT does a really amazing job at just summarizing what these tools are, what they're necessarily used for. So I see, Outreach is available. Clary's Groove is available for sales acceleration. So I have a better understanding. Okay, this is the sort of arena that I'm working within when I'm trying to sell to Datadog when it comes to, aligning my use cases and solutions with their strategic priorities. And one thing I didn't actually mention here that's semi-related to this, but not so related to this, is the ability to thumbs up and thumbs down. So this, again, gives us more context as to if you're liking something or not liking something, allowing us to provide you, better answers on in the future.
Lucas, we have a great question from Greg of Anaplan. He says, well, first of all, I couldn't agree more with his opening statement. He says, okay, this is super cool. And he's wondering, how current is this information?
Yeah, I agree. It's super cool as well. I don't have the exact dates in terms of like how current the information is, but like I said, we are working with a partner called Sales Intel, which their focus is really keeping the most up-to-date information on things like Technographics as well as people. So you'll actually see in a second, we actually are going to ask about who are some buying contacts at Datadog, which Sales Intel is a partner that provides us that information. And from all the testing I've done, it seemed extremely current and relevant. They're on par with other, data providers that are trying to provide this information like at large. But I can follow up after this webinar with some like more specific information on that. I just don't have it handy immediately, but it is up to date, not just like something from 6 months ago. So you can definitely rely on this information when you're doing outreach. So like I mentioned, what I move on to next is kind of finding some key buying contacts at Datadog that I could reach out to. The original Databook app or existing one that you can still go to for some insights has like a list of people for each of the companies. A lot of them are super, super high level, C-level execs. What's really nice here is that we've partnered with Sales Intel to get even more contact data so we could get, a better view into the organization. So you're not always having to just reach out to some C-level executive and hoping that you get a reply back. So here I put who are some key buying contacts at Datadog I could reach out to. Over here, I have Masahiro in Japan. I'm not sure if like this is who I want to be reaching out to when it comes to Datadog necessarily, because I am selling in the US. We have the CRO. Again, that's kind of like a C-level exec at this company. I'm not sure if I'm going to get like a good response or a response whatsoever, but I do have information related to their LinkedIn, their phone number, their email, their location. This is all really, really helpful information to help me understand, like, is this potentially the right person to reach out to? My third person here is Jeff. And Jeff looks like a good contact I could be reaching out to. He's a VP of sales. I have his number. I don't have his LinkedIn. I'm sure I could take a look on my own on LinkedIn to see where he's at. But he's based in New York, so it seems like this would be the best person I could potentially align with to get my foot in the door here. And you'll see that there is a ton of people in this list, and this is information that we're constantly trying to figure out how we can format it better or provide better answers on. Again, this is very new information for us that we're making available through Databook GPT, much like the Technographics. So if you start to ask questions like this to Databook GPT, you can expect these answers to only get better and better and better as we get a better grasp of how we can like leverage that data and weave it in with the existing Databook proprietary data that we have. I'm taking a look at the comments just between Greg and Tim. I think these are really good questions to have. I'm going to definitely do a quick follow-up after this webinar and reach out to everyone that joined just to kind of follow up on this, because I think it's a really good thing that we can also include on our FAQs in the future, just so it's super clear like how relevant this information is, because as you kind of mentioned, it's not really useful if it's not what they're actually using. I'm very certain that these tools are what they're actually using, which is why it's a really cool addition to Databook GPT. But definitely love the comments.
Yeah, just to clarify for the recording's sake, Greg was asking if you can ask Databook GPT if your customer uses a specific solution like Adobe Workfront. So that was the question in context.
Thanks, Matt.
You bet.
Okay, next step. This is my last step I'm going to go through in my favorite flow here. I want to write a prospecting email to Jeff because he's the one I think is probably going to respond to my email. Of course, I'm a product person and not a salesperson, so don't roast me too much. But over here, I'm asking Tim to I'm asking Databook GPT to write an email for Jeff. Databook GPT provides me with a couple of options here. Right now, these are sort of like prompts that are configured by Databook ourselves, but I think similar to the Databook score, hopefully we can provide this sort of optionality for organizations to customize these sort of like email outputs themselves, so that you don't have to, do it in the way that Databook writes their emails and have it more curated to, the way that your sales ops teams would like emails to be written by the sales org. Great. I'm going to go ahead then and move on to, quick mention, this sort of favorite flow is going to be available in the recording, obviously, but just so you don't have to write everything down I just went through, it's very easy to follow here. So if you ever want to go through this flow yourself, it'll just be an easy reference point for you.
Yeah, thank you for walking us through that. And on to the next one.
Yeah. So the next one I want to go through is the sort of ChatGPT versus Databook GPT. And one of the things I mentioned earlier on in the webinar is that Databook GPT has a lot of context for who you are, who your organization is. So I wanted to put this to the test and obviously show a clear example of like how this is different. And I am putting myself on the line here because this is going to be a live demo of me asking the same question in ChatGPT. So last time I checked, ChatGPT couldn't answer this question. It's because as good as Databook GPT could, but things change in technology fairly quickly. So you can see here that I asked what's going on at Nike in Databook GPT. My response that I got from Databook GPT was, business description, talking about their segments, products and services. Again, strategic priorities. This is a proprietary data set that's unique to Databook, so that's really good information. Some financial performance metrics, key competitors, some signals. So recent CEO change, that's really good to know. And then again, TLDR summary, because if you don't want to read all of that, you can always go down to the summary, which is really nice. So what I'm going to do here is ask this same question in ChatGPT. Again, try not to roast me for my history, but there wasn't a way to just show the question part, and I wanted everyone to see that this is indeed happening in real time. I was able to figure out my espresso settings if anyone was curious. So I'm going to go ahead and ask what's going on at Nike here. And I'm using 4.0. I do have a paid plan to have access to 1.0, but I think 4.0 is what's readily available for everyone. I'll do another webinar on what my ChatGPT history is in the future. So just waiting
for that.
Okay, just waiting for this to come through.
You can already tell the difference in the formatting too. It's a lot more to read, not broken down.
Yeah, absolutely. So, they do have some level of citations, which is really nice, but I'd have to read through this sort of like block of text. They did capture like the CEO change, which, is a pretty big change that I imagine is all over the web. But I think as a seller, that's not, it is partially like a signal to you, but not as helpful as things like strategic priorities. But you can see that they're focusing a lot on this information, probably because it's been talked about in the news a lot of him leaving. So, this is the first paragraph, not really that helpful to me in terms of like what I need to know. In terms of financial performance, again, it does give you some metrics similar to how Databook GPT does. But again, it's not giving it to you in human terms or really understanding it like beyond like having an MBA degree to really understand like what this could mean for a company, while you're getting something that's like a little bit more actionable, or not a little, a lot more actionable in Databook GPT. And then there's something about stock volatility, which I wouldn't necessarily say is like super helpful. I'm sure if I put in things like, these are my use cases and strategic priorities, this is the company I work for, I could get something kind of close to what Databook potentially has. But again, that's me putting in a lot of work into ChatGPT and wasting time, which the purpose of the sort of tool that we've created for Databook GPT is to make you more efficient. So that's not the only option I want to show, because I didn't want to just show that that might be a fluke of why Databook GPT might be different from ChatGPT. So here you'll see that I asked about Nike again, asking about their latest earnings call in Databook GPT here, get some information about the transcript and a quick summary of what actually happened there, forward guidance, key initiatives, and key takeaways. This is actually my favorite part of the earnings call summary that Databook GPT provides, because you're getting these specific quotes that have happened within the earnings call that you can reference when you're doing outreach, which I think is a really, really powerful tool. When I go to ChatGPT and do the same thing, let's go open a new, summarize Nike's latest earnings call.
Paragraphs.
Yeah, I know. So it's focusing mostly on like the numbers here, not so, a little bit on strategic direction, with the leadership emphasizing their focus on innovation and digital growth to strengthen consumer connections. Again, I'm not sure how you all feel, but that feels very vague to me and not very actionable from a seller standpoint. And then talking about earnings per share. So you can see that a lot of what ChatGPT does, even in the sort of previous one, is like focus a lot as if like I'm an individual person that's really concerned with like stock volatility or pricing for some reason, which I assume that's why a lot of people are asking about these sort of things in ChatGPT. But as I previously mentioned, with Databook GPT, we know the context of which you're asking your questions, so we're able to get you to your answers a lot faster.
And I think the other thing too is that Databook GPT is doing the thinking for you. You've already alluded to this, but it's already proactively thinking of it's anticipating what other information you might need to know, while if you were to try to continue to do layers of prompts within ChatGPT, it would take who knows how many prompts to continue to get it that granular or more specific to you. So I think that hopefully this side-by-side really highlights that. I also noticed Greg, he just commented, just ran a similar side-by-side, but with Perplexity. Databook format is much better. Thank you, Greg.
Good to hear. Right, so I think that is it for the demo and the side-by-side. But I know we have a slide here. So this will be something that you can reference that I went, these were sort of the things that I went over when it was Databook GPT versus ChatGPT's responses. But I think, as Greg mentioned, maybe I need to add Perplexity as another column here and get this sort of table built out a little bit more. But you'll have this as a reference, of course, for after the call. And then moving on from this, we have some resources. I'll pass it to you, Matt.
Yeah, we just want to continue to highlight more resources that will be available to customers. And one of those is Databook Connect. So that's our user community. It's a one-stop shop. You'll get peer tips, prompt help. We put recordings like this in there. So not only will you get the full recording, but you'll get a nice breakdown. You'll get actionable steps. We have all the additional demos and story lane for you to explore. So really, it's a big comprehensive look at Databook in general, user community style. And then also, we have our Databook GPT prompt and workflow guide. So this is something that the team is constantly updating. As Lucas kind of showed his favorite flow, we will continue to incorporate user recommendations and the things that are really popping off to continue to deliver you value, customized to you, and what successes people are having. So really just want to continue to emphasize beyond this, plenty of resources to check out.
Thanks, Matt. And I think for the Databook community, I'll definitely be participating in there. So if you were a bit shy to ask any questions or have any ideas for how Databook GPT could be better, I'm always open to hearing all of that. And you'll see my face in some of the posts there. So looking forward to it.
We also have some additional webinars coming up. So this is another one that's going to be really demo heavy. This will really walk you through meeting prep. There will be 3 scenarios that you can register to watch live, similar to what Lucas is doing. So Trevor from our sales team and Jacob from our business value division, they'll be leading this walkthrough. So as you think of all the meetings you're preparing for, we've whittled it down to 3 scenarios. It'll show how quickly you can get that really, really sharp one-stop shop of everything you need to know about who you're meeting with, what is on their mind, and how to deliver value to that meeting, unlike ever before. So that's coming up on October 9th. You can go to databook.com to register on our events page. And then also we've got Scott Ingram. So he's from Sales Success Media, one of the best podcasts I know I've listened to. His website's phenomenal for sales content. He's going to be focusing on how to become an A player in sales. So he'll have a nice presentation. Everybody can ask him questions. Really recommend following him on LinkedIn for additional content. And of course, if you would like to book a demo, please go to databook.com. We will reach out to you. You can also explore a lot of those demos on there. And if you are looking to become a potential customer, really explore that resource. You'll find plenty of information. And of course, reach out to our team at any point. We are here to help. Lucas, want to give you a big, sincere thank you for hosting today's session. Thank you for the big, comprehensive deep dive into Databook GPT.
Of course, I could talk about this for hours, so I'm glad that we're limited on time.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you to everybody who's attended. We will see you on the next one in a couple weeks. Hope to see you there.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day.